Welcome back, all you boys and girls, lovers of vintage or curious about it. Yes, because today in this video, after months and months of tests, listening, pairing, comparing, we are finally going to take a look at a vintage jewel. Something that is regarded, considered as one of the most impressive, best power amps ever done. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Oh yes, guys, McIntosh MC30. Now, the video is going to go like this. There's going to be a few indication characteristics now. Then we're going to see a close-up of the physical aspects. I'm also going to give you some tips on which tubes, because this is a tube type of amplifier. And afterwards, I will give you finally my take, my assessment, my impressions, what it struck me, the good, the bad, everything. Okay, so let's dive in immediately by saying that this is one of the first actually amplifiers done by McIntosh. This was exclusively done in America, so you're going to have only one type of voltage. You European guys, be prepared. If you find something different, that means that someone modified it. But they were produced from 1954 all the way to 1962. Not that much, actually. And the ones I found are from 1958, although separated. They're not consecutive. Because we're talking about a mono amplifier, which was sold as a mono amplifier. Because back in the old days, they had a mono setup. They had one loudspeaker. If we're talking about the 50s, slowly in the 60s, things were changing, but people were mainly getting that. So that's why the normal use is actually one monoblock, while clearly today we need two. And that's why, and we have excellent channel separation at that point. I mean, it's always better to have monoblocks if you have the space, if you have the resources, and go through all the fuss necessary to set them properly up. Okay, so apart from this, let's just explain a little bit, a few aspects. Now this is, as the name goes, a 30-watt amplifier, although Steve Hoffman, because I went around in different forums trying to understand a few characteristics, and I trust Steve Hoffman, who says that they actually output around 38 watts. And Kevin Gray did a test with 1 kilohertz sine wave signal, reaching 45 watts, which is a lot. That's impressive. In any case, remember that we have around 35, 38, or maybe even less, according also to which kind of tubes you're going to adopt. We're going to see a little bit more on that just upcoming. So apart from that, remember that we don't have that much power. Hence, you're going to need a speaker that is capable of dealing with such low type of power. So if you want to experiment, because this is an experiment, as me, please consider to have a very sensitive type of speaker, okay? I would say at least 90, but even a little more would be better. 92, things like that. I have a 93.2, and I think it would be even better, a little more sensitivity. But nevertheless, I mean, these watts, I mean, they're all there, okay? So you really have all the juice in those 30 watts. Absolutely. I had no problem in using them with my Golden Ear Triton reference, but I also tried something a little more vintage, but that's going to come up in a future video. So I'm not going to tell you anything about that. Okay, so let's take a look now at the physical characteristics, and then we'll go a little more in depth on other aspects. Let's go. Okay, so
we'll start to put the main specs here on screen, which I'm not going to go too much in depth. You can just read them. I'm just going to highlight the main elements, and then I'm going to turn it around to show you the inputs and the outputs. Now, first of all, I want to catch your attention on this little part here, okay? Now, this is one little trick to understand if this is old or new, because they are redoing, since the model is so popular and people want it nice and clean and shiny, while clearly if it's something coming from the 60s or even the 50s, it can't be too perfect. In some cases, obviously, you will find it, but that's rare and the price is going to go up. So a lot of people are creating new chassis. And one way to determine if it's an old or a new chassis is to take a look at the edge. If it's beveled, that means it's old, because the new ones are practically a 90-degree angle here, okay? I'm sure there are also other ways. Please write them in the comments if you do. This is one I know about. Okay, so before going a little more in depth on the baby itself, I want to show you an image of the inside of the MC30. This was taken by the seller who sold this to me. I'm not going to open it again. There isn't that much to see, and it's filled of images all over internet. But I did want to show you this one because, as you can see, it has a lot of new capacitors and elements inside that make up the so-called MC30 upgrade. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going to cringe on this, but there is this very high-quality kit going around on eBay, for example, where you can update the main inner components, the main capacitors, actually, in the end. One thing I do recommend, which I have read here and there, and it makes perfectly sense, is to not, I repeat, not substitute, if possible, the resistors. Because these bumblebee resistors are the ones who give a special tonality to this amplifier, to this power amplifier, okay? If you are purchasing something refurbished, recapped, make sure that at least the resistors are still in place. And this is valid also in other machines, actually. Now, I don't know, hence, how this sounds with its original capacitors. In any case, I will give you my take, as I said, at the end of the video. Okay, so apart from this, I also wanted to highlight the weight of this baby. Each one is more than 30 pounds, 30 and a half. More or less almost 14 kilos each. That's a lot, especially for that age. But clearly you have the chassis, you have these huge transformers, and all the rest of the components. It's clearly going to push up the weight. So I want to try to describe a little bit of the different tubes here, okay? Now, I found a great recipe by Steve Hoffman, which I think he really knows what he's talking about, and highly recommends a specific set, specific brands in specific positions, which I'm going to share with you, and that I did find to be incredible. Also because I did not find mine this way. It was filled with new tubes from the Tube Doctor, which are good, but not for vintage stuff. Vintage stuff needs almost always high quality tubes of the past, possibly new old stock, but in any case, old tubes. They just work better. In fact, I want to add a little thing here before starting. Remember that I said that my Spettro, the preamplifier, is fantastic, is always beating my Shindo. Okay, in this case, the Shindo sounds better as a preamplifier with this, because I must admit that it is true that the saying that older type of machines, even though the Shindo isn't older, but the way it's built, it's old school, point to point soldering, that kind of build, no PCBs. Now that just works better with this, clearly, electrically. And I would say just in general, the different parts just go better together, because in other modern amplifiers, the Spectro always won. Okay, apart from this digression, let's start with the main tubes. Okay, so here we have mainly what we could define the preamp tubes. Here we find the rectifier. This is an electrolytic capacitor. And here are the two output tubes, okay? Plus the two transformers. This is the power transformer. This is the output transformer. Okay, but let's go a little bit in detail. I'm also going to put a little image with the various names so you can have a reference. Okay, so let's start from the far left. Here, indicated in the picture as V1, we have the 12AX7, which is also present in this other position. This one is a preamp, this one is a driver for voltage gain, and Steve Hoffman recommends for both position Telefunken. Tout court, that's it. Okay, then for this other position, the V2, he recommends, which is a 12AU7, which is dedicated to amp and amplifier and phase inverter, which is the most important of all, okay? This is the one that tunes the amplifier, where you can really change the sound. This little baby right here, the 12AU7. Now he recommends Mullard, always, it's always good. The older the better, he says. Otherwise, RCA clear top and RCA black plate for a brighter sound. If your system is a little dull, a little too dark, we could say. Or if your system is too aggressive, the Telefunken also in this case. If you want more air, and that is what I needed, and afterwards I will tell you why, here in this position you can use an Amperix Bumblebee, which ain't at all cheap, but they are truly outstanding. And I was very lucky to find a couple of new old stock in Germany. Okay, so after this we can proceed with position V3, which is the 12BH7. Again, this is a type of driver, again for voltage gain. And he recommends General Electric or RCA for this position. Okay, then here for the rectifier, he recommends RCA or General Electric, or also Sylvania and Tunxol. I mean, clearly it's not a crucial one, but it's good to have a good type of rectifier. This is the electrolytic capacitor, the filter electrolytic capacitor, which is quite difficult to change. It's not a tube, and it's obviously it's all connected below. And you should change this as well. You can find these as well on eBay, but it's very hard to have the proper matching specs. If possible, it's the last thing I think you should change because it's quite difficult. Nevertheless, you can. Absolutely, you can find these authentic caps, they're called. I'll put an image, which are indicated to have excellent results. Okay, turning back to our tubes. Remember, I'm Italian, that's why I say tubes and not tubes. In any case, apart from this, then we have the output tubes, which, again, we have a specific recommendation. In this case, I have the 1614 in both position. But you can also find in other models the 6L6GC. So, in any case, these are highly recommended, the 1614 RCA military grade tubes, which some say they deliver a little less power, you have less wattage, but you're going to have better and great mid-high frequencies. Otherwise, if you go with the 6L6GC by General Electric, that's the one he recommends, you're going to have the full wattage, plus a little more muscle sound with the more lows, more low end. At least that's what they say. Clearly, I didn't experiment on all, so I'm just reporting what I found on this very interesting discussion by Steve Hoffman. And I'll read now his comment. On some speakers that need top end, I might use an Amperix Bumblebee in the spot. On some speakers with too much top end, I would use a Telefunken in that spot. and so on. RCAs, both clear and black, are also good. You can't go wrong with Mullards. The older, the better, as I said, in fact. Okay, so now let's take a look to the inputs and outputs. Okay, guys, so here you can see the different inputs and outputs. So let's start from the most important. Right here, you can see there is this little knob. That is something added by someone before, because otherwise you're simply going to find a pot like this one, which is to regulate the gain. The best is to keep it almost at the maximum, okay, in order to avoid distortion. So if instead of 100%, for example, 85, 90, that's probably the best. Below, if you're experiencing hum, you can regulate that, very cool, with this hum adjustment little pot. Otherwise, just keep it off. And for the signal, you have various options. Now, first of all, you have this type of connector, which is to use for the own McIntosh preamplifiers or something similar. Actually, you could build your own type of connection, because actually inside, the way they are connected is slightly different. So you're probably going to have different types of results according to the input. In any case, there is, fortunately, a classic 0.5 volt input for your RCA connection interconnect. Otherwise, there is also the possibility to use stripped wires, naked wires, right there. So that's something different, something clearly of the past. You're not going to see that anymore, but there is that option if you want. For the outputs, clearly we have here various solutions according to the different impedance of your speaker, going from 16 ohms over here to 8, 4, and then you have the common. Otherwise, there's also this other output, once again, this specific type of DIN, which can be used for a specific type of speaker. So you can also use that if you are having problems with the other ones, for example. Clearly, you're going to have to build your own. Then we have the power cord, which is fixed. Sometimes you have an unswitched AC outlet in this position, not in this case, and the fuse. Here, as you can see, I had to add these little things here, which are very useful for bananas or things like that. Although it's a poor connection, it's not very nice because it's brass. I mean, it's not a high quality connection. I haven't found anything else. If you know anything else to insert in here, because it's very narrow, very hard to put something there, please write it in the comment section. That would be greatly appreciated. In any case, you can use also clearly naked bare wires like they did in the past, and simply just put them here, corresponding to the impedance of your speaker. On this other side, we have, I think you can see it even if it's very shiny and mirror-like, all the different specifications of the power amplifier. Very, very cool. And that's it.
Okay, I forgot to mention a few details on the models, the price. Now, at the time, it was going around $153 you can find on these promo vouchers, or slightly less afterwards, $143, which more or less, with the correction of the inflation today in the US, it would be around $1,700, which is pretty good, actually. One, clearly. You have to multiply it per 2, and it comes up more or less the same value today, although they usually go more towards 4,000, even higher prices when they're in excellent condition, dollars, but also euro, more or less. I was lucky to win an auction on eBay from a guy in France, as I said, who redid all the, not all, the main capacitors, and hopefully it should be an upgrade. Nevertheless, I can't say it is because I never heard the normal ones, okay? I want to be honest and clear on this. So, and I paid around 3,400 euro, which is a high price, but compared to other things like the AccuPhase or the Past Labs or, I don't know, the Master Sound, I mean, it's nothing practically. And we have mainly, from what I understand, 3 models. The basic one, the normal one, the MC30. Otherwise, there's the MC30A, which has a variable damping kit. And also very curious, very interesting, the Mac kit. Sometimes you're going to find the MC30 with the logo in front written Mac kit, which was something, a do-it-yourself project practically. You had to do everything by yourself, step by step. Very cool, and those clearly are less sought after, so you can find them at a lower price, even though you're not completely sure what's inside. In any case, you can also find those. Okay, so after now we have seen all the different details, physical characteristics, inputs, outputs, and all the different parts, let's try to analyze a little bit the sound. Now, I want to say right from the start, at this point of the video, together with the bells, that this is an incredibly sounding amplifier. Actually, easily, this amplifier kicked the ass, sorry about my language, of the past labs, of the AccuPhase, yes guys, and all the other stuff that passed in here, which is not that much in the end, but it's pretty high end. And these little babies, probably, as I said, you really have to pay attention to the pairing with the preamplifier. As I said, Shindo or that type of construction, much better, but the Spettro is absolutely fantastic with anything. Sensitive speakers, better if you go vintage. The whole system vintage just works better. It's undeniable. Now I touch it with my hands. I have this experience and it's clear. Now, I haven't gone in depth on what happened with the tubes. When I got it, I had these all new tubes, and immediately when I turned it on, it was amazing. I mean, I never heard something like that. But it was sluggish, extremely slow, with his butt on the ground. I would have sworn that the music was going slower. I mean, 100%. It's incredible, that effect. But no, it's just the type of tubes which are not correct. And with the Amperix, things just exploded, guys. Bloomed. They reached the pinnacle of what I consider a pure analog engagement experience. I mean, the type of music, the quality, the different aspects of the sonics were just pulling me inside the music. It was incredible. It is incredible. And I just got these for an experiment because I wanted to buy something really vintage, not something vintage-ish. No. This is a 1958 pair of amplifiers, guys. We're at the beginning. And with their very simple circuit, quality components, quality tubes. I mean, you can't compare it to the AccuPhase, to the past labs, to the other things, not even modern things like the Prima Luna. I never mentioned this, but I also got 2 monoblocks from Master Sound, SET type, okay, with those huge 845s tubes. Not even close. You guys, all of these, way back. I mean, the sound, when you compare it, it sounds artificial. I still have my AccuPhase here. It's just something that I wasn't prepared for. I knew something different was coming out because obviously I did have other vintage stuff. But in the end, I must admit I don't have that much experience with tube power amps. And this was just revelating. Something that made me understand how not things should sound, but how things can really get a grip on your soul, how things can be so engaging and relaxing, no fatigue, no, any artificial parts of the music, just more natural and effortless. Probably probably rich in harmonics and distortion, because I'm sure, even though things have been done by this guy who is an engineer, he said he is an electronic engineer, so he knew what he was doing, and he brought things up to spec. There's always going to be some problems with the 1950s amplifiers. Nevertheless, wow, baby. I rediscovered my collection. I know that's almost a cliche now. Everyone says that, but I never said it in any other video. If you noticed, this time it really happened. And with the pair of speakers that I found recently, even though they have great limitations, the things went even better. So vintage with these crazy prices that we're having today is really a way to go, because if you know where to go and what to choose, the price is excellent, or at least decent, and greatly rewarding. Yes, it's a pain in the ass to bring everything up to spec, to control, to check, to send to a lab. Then you have problems. Then you have to change the tube. You have to find the right tubes. It's a nightmare. But after you've done all the process, if you're willing to do it, it's just overwhelming. I mean, you really reach the pinnacle of what high fidelity means. So, if I have to say something, incredible mid-range. I mean, just incredible mid-range. Beautiful, supple, rich, full, true. I mean, true, especially the mid-range, is really true to what is reality. There you can really understand the high fidelity. Then clearly you have a nice soft upper register, the upper frequencies, and a nice deep bass, really deep. But this is important because, especially with the golden ears, which I have these boom sensation every once in a while, according to the component and according to the recording, because these are powered subwoofers, and there is that effect subwoofer. It's not a natural passive loudspeaker. At least I sense that almost immediately. With the MC30s, that was greatly reduced. Much more control, much more, I don't know, just a better quality of the bass. Fantastic. Really, guys, much better than the AccuPhase. Much better. Especially, I would say, there, and clearly the mid-range. Wow. Just wow. So it took a while to do this. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave your comments on other types of McIntosh amplifiers or on other SET amplifiers you would highly recommend, because I am in a phase which I would like to experiment, especially this type of technology, because I'm finding that it's highly rewarding. Absolutely. Okay, guys, thank you again for watching, and remember that music is born analog.
Well, guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below. Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.